Guys, how's it going? Eli here, back with another video where today we're going to be having a conversation about my #1 booster box pickup right now for 2022, as well as going through our official start of the series, Playing the Waves. Without further ado, let's just jump right into it. As always, getting out of the way, if you want to enter into our weekly giveaways, all you have to do is be subscribed, leave a like, and comment down below on any of the pre-recorded videos we post each and every week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Of course, we've got 3 winners each and every week, and since you can comment and like on each of our 3 videos, you have multiple opportunities to enter and multiple opportunities to win. Now, let's jump into today's topic. So for those of you that don't know, one of the biggest strategies that I had kind of talked about during the more or less bull market cycle was what's called playing the waves. Playing the waves is a general strategy of playing short-term volatility in order to cash out on profit that you would realistically be able to make anywhere between 10, 15 to, upwards of 30 to 50%, depending upon how volatile we're getting with the specific product, and of course the fees and considerations on when and where you're selling the product. So with, of course, all of that being said, we've seen obviously a pullback in volatility within the market. However, certain items such as Evolving Skies and Brilliant Star booster boxes have still performed really well, and the volatility has been there, where if you had bought in at their reprint points or if you had bought in at pre-sale price points, you were able to get in at a nice price and be able to sell it for a good chunk of profit. And so that's kind of what we're going to be going through today, and we're going to make a little series out of this, which I'm very excited to announce, and I'm going to take part with you guys, so I'm going to put my money where my mouth is on this. Now, starting off, kind of giving a general example, Evolving Skies, for those of you, of course, that didn't know, Evolving Skies, when it first actually had its overall, pre-release, it was able to go as low as 105, 110 on some sites. General market price at the time was around roughly 115, of course. And if you had said to yourself, hey, I'm going to get in at 115, if we're talking about from a higher price point, but you could have easily gotten in at 105, 110 on pre-sale, and you had sold at the absolute high, for those of you guys that remember, it of course was roughly around $195 to $200 on a TCG player. Now, Polkadot is not going to represent that because Polkadot is taking averages, but let's say hypothetically speaking, you were able to sell it for this 172 price point, and no fees considered because you're not selling on TCG, you're selling off site. You're saying to yourself that you could roughly have anywhere between a 30+% of profit being made, which is absolutely killer for something that you could have done within, a 2-month period of time. And then, of course, once again, you saw that kind of retracement on the overall price of the Evolving Skies booster box after the more or less reprint wave, or final wave, I should call it. I wouldn't necessarily call it a reprint wave, happened. And then, of course, once again, climbed back up to that $200 price point on TCG. We saw a very, very slight dip down to 120 when we had that small reprint, and then back up to 180. So if you had your opportunities where you bought back in at 120, it sold out fast on some places, but let's say you did, and then it went up to 184, which is, pushing 200 on TCG, you would have made money. Bought in at 100, sold back again at the 200 price point, would have made money. Bought in at 105, 110, sold at the 200, would have made money. So obviously, like I said before, this is depending upon if you're selling on TCG and taking the fees, which is, easy for everyone to do, or if you're saying I'm going to go sell on a Facebook Marketplace group. There's totally different ways in which you're going to approach it. But of course, generally speaking, as you can see, there's just ways in which you can play this quote-unquote playing the wave strategy. Now, obviously, from the time of the second wave, you're looking at it from its swing low to swing high. It took about 5 months, more or less, for it to finally hit that point, where for here, it took only 2 months. So volatility has gone down. So we're now looking at this no longer as a, more or less short-term strategy, unless we're looking at pre-sale pricing, because, of course, pre-sale pricing is something where you're saying to yourself, all right, well, we don't have all the cards that are officially revealed yet for the set, or maybe we do and the market has not priced it in. So you're looking at this at a different form of volatility than after the full set itself has been released. Second thing, of course, you also want to consider as well is the Pokemon Company has now changed its general strategy on how it's going to be pushing things out. It is no longer doing this all as a 2-3 wave structure. It is now a 1-wave structure, as we've kind of seen with some of the booster box product prices, such as Lost Origin. It has had a relatively decent demand, I would say, and the pricing of it for that reason has actually kind of stayed steady at 105. You didn't see a huge drop off after its initial release. It's just been more or less sideways, slightly up. And so that's another thing to consider when talking about price stability. Of course, some other important things to also consider to yourself is when investing in these booster boxes, what specifically am I going to pick and for what reason am I going to be picking this? And we're going to walk through that step by step and going through which specific examples as to why you should go with certain booster boxes over others when you're trying to decide which is which. Same concept, of course, when comparing Evolving Skies to Brilliant Star. Once again, off-site, you can find 105, 110 cheaper on other places, but at its overall peak high, it was going for around 170 at one point. I mean, even pushing 180 when we're talking about on TCG Player. So if you had gone around, bought it in for that 105 price point and flipped it around, maybe sold it for cheaper somewhere else, but just instead of eating the fees, you could have easily flipped it around and made yourself, what, a 20+% profit within the span of, what, about a month and a half, 2 months. So, I mean, even though the volatility, of course, has gone down and it's taking longer after it's had its initial prints, you know, there's still tons of opportunity to be made here, especially now that the overall, you know, first wave prints have started to go down themselves. So I would definitely say that you can still play the wave strategy. There's still going to be tons of opportunities. You just have to be very smart in which the way you're going to be approaching it. And I've been very patient about this video. This is a video that I've been wanting to, of course, put out for a while, but I haven't seen a set, in my personal opinion, where there's been a real opportunity for that risk to reward upside. And I think that set is just now officially come out, and we're going to walk through why I specifically like that set. So, of course, if we're going with Brilliant Stars, we got to ask ourselves the question, why did Brilliant Stars do as well as it did? Well, pretty simple, quite, you know, quite easy to understand. It was a Charizard set. Of course, don't get me wrong, Arceus did help to the value, but if we're talking about the overall value of the most expensive cards in the set, the top two are Charizard, or if you want to go the top four, you know, 3 out of 4 of them are Charizard. So, of course, Arceus does add some additional value to it, but the real big money ones are the Charizard. So, it's an extremely popular character. The value of this specific set is going to do well because of it. Arceus is going to help to it, but then, of course, once again, what added some additional value to it, it had a trainer gallery with some evolutions in it. Adds a ton of value, adds a ton of strength to the set, and so for that reason, it's done extremely well. Of course, then taking a look at Evolving Skies as the overall next set, what is there to say about Evolving Skies? Obviously, it does not have a trainer gallery, but what it makes up for instead is with its abundance of alternate arts availability. It is both a Dragon and Evolution fusion set with tons and tons of cards that are at high value, tons of art designs that are high to be desired. Evolution, for those of you guys that don't know, super popular character. Rayquaza, once again, super popular character. See the theme here? Dragonite, super popular character. So whole general kind of concept of when you're comparing is what sets have in terms of popular characters. Now, of course, some people will make arguments for certain art designs being desired over others. I would like to say that for Evolving Skies doesn't have that issue necessarily. And even for, you know, of course, when you're looking at art designs for Brilliant Stars, people haven't had that issue. But if you do look at a set like Pokemon Go, there's been a bunch of different people that have given their criticisms for the Mewtwo, you know, alternate full art. Whether you love it or you hate it, I think it more has to do with the fact of the set stigma around the Pokemon Go when you're talking about the fact that it's literally just Mewtwo and Dragonite, which doesn't really include much outside of course, the Radiant cards, which, don't get me wrong, I mean, that's, you know, a decent amount of things nonetheless, especially when you're kind of comparing it to Brilliant Star. But outside of that, there's just so many more abundance of pulls that you could potentially get from Brilliant Star, because it does have that entire character rare subset on top of the fact that it has multiple other alternate arts, past just the Charizard that you could like, such as the Arceus, such as the Lumineon, whereas here it's really, are you excited about a Conkeldurr alternate art? I would say probably not. So I think it's really hard to kind of compare the two, not to mention this is an ETB set, not a booster box set too. And this has been a heavily printed set where Brilliant Stars has not. So a lot of variables, a lot of things that I think are very important to kind of understand with that. Now, of course, we're going to go through the reveal process now, because everyone's wanting to know, Eli, just get to the point, just get to the juices of it. Tell me what you want me to buy. Of course, not financial advice, not a financial advisor. I'm never going to tell you specifically to buy something, but for this specific video, I'm going to be buying something. And if you want to join me in this overall theory video, overall theory process, then you can, because this is something where I think it'd be a fun video and a fun experiment to put my money where my mouth is. If I'm right, then congrats. This could be something where I could make some small money off of it. If not, then obviously it's a learning experience that we're gonna walk through along the way, and it'd be more of a longer term play in terms of playing the quote unquote waves. Because like I've said before, we're trying to test right now if the volatility is there, and based off of what we've seen from prior sets that have done well, do we think that there's an opportunity here with either this specific set, or do we think there is something where, hey, maybe, that set, although it is a good set and it's going to be a top set, the volatility isn't there anymore, and so it's going to be a longer term approach. I think that, from my personal opinion, there is an opportunity, which is why I'm making this video to begin with. So without further ado, you guys probably heard who were on the live stream yesterday, me talking about it. But yes, it is the Silver Tempest booster box. And so as you can see right here, you just bought this item. So I bought one full case. That's kind of what I wanted to do for playing the wave. You don't have to buy a full case, of course. No one's going to be forcing you to do it. But, for me personally, I wanted to go with buying the case in this example, because I do think there are a large amount of individuals that are able to afford a case and play this kind of general strategy, especially when you come from a shipping perspective, how much money you're going to be saving if you are trying to flip a case versus the booster box. Of course, that's something where if you want to play along with just a booster box, you want to play along with, just a couple of booster boxes, you can totally do that with me as well. You just have to obviously consider that it's going to eat into your general margin when you are shipping out, depending, of course, what you're shipping out on. So Troll and Toad, of course, was the store that I had purchased from. Of course, they've got a ton of really positive reviews for so there's someone that I trust. And then $97.50 is a price point that I felt extremely comfortable with. And the reason why I feel extremely comfortable with it is because right now, if you're talking about general prices, if you're a fan of Lost Origin, that's what you're getting it for right now. Astral Radiance, I think you can get slightly cheaper for $92, but I think personally speaking that Lost Origin is a better set than that. And so considering if you are a fan of Lost Origin and you're buying it for around that price point, you're basically banking on the fact of the matter, hey, do I think Silver Tempest is going to be as equal of a set, if not a better set, then you're going to find value in it. Because at the end of the day, if this does be something that, if it does become something that is a wash, right, and it is like, hey, the price of this product comes out, it tanks all the way down to, let's say, in the low 90s, let's say it goes into the mid 80s, then it's something for me where I'm just going to double down and I'm going to get in and dollar cost average. Because at that point, you can't look at this from a short-term perspective and say, hey, I couldn't play the waves properly, therefore I was wrong, I need to sell at a loss. That's not how you do this. You now have to look at this at a longer, broader term perspective if you are wrong in your theory. And by longer term perspective, I mean like another 6 months to another year, because that's just what this strategy is. This strategy is we play the short-term time frame. If the short-term time frame doesn't work and prices actually go down from when we first bought it, then we double down, and then once prices start to go back up, then we take our dollar cost average point and we cash out on it, because that's just the best way, I think, to approach this. Of course, we are not crystal ball readers. We can't necessarily tell you when that exact price point is. I can't tell you what my prediction is for Silver Tempest, but what I can tell you is I do think that based on general allocations, we know that this is once again going to be a one-wave set, and we do know that with the most recent set, Lost Origin, you haven't seen a ton of general downward volatility after new set releases, and I think there's going to be a lot bigger of a build hype up for this one specific reason, and it's because this is going to be a Lugia set. Now, of course, we haven't had the Lugia revealed within this set, and that's one of the reasons why I like it to be picked up at this current price in time, because we're playing the speculation. If I realistically wanted to, I could, of course, go to Troll and Toad and I could say right now, hey, I would like to cancel and refund my order before it is shipped out. And I could go through the process and do that after the, let's say the art of itself is just terrible and it ends up, being something where I've changed my thought process. Or let's say that, hey, the character rare gallery, it's going to be absolute trash, which I highly, highly don't think it is. And we're going to go through that in a second here. But I can always change my mind on the general thought process about this, since I am going through eBay and this is a pre-sale specific item. This isn't an item that, of course, is going to be released for at least another month and a half. So going through it, I want to kind of look through at some of the history of just Lugia sets in general. Of course, if we want to go through and look at the most recent one, that is going to be Lost Thunder. For those of you guys that don't know, it did have a resupply of product that we did end up looking at. However, if you don't take that resupply into consideration, it was pushing at around $550. Now, of course, take this into consideration. This is a set that neither had GX tag team cards involved in it, and this was a set that also did not as well include the alternate art variations of the Sun and Moon era, and it did not have a character rare subset like Sun and Moon. This was a set that straight up just had a Lugia, and then it had a couple of other cool rainbow cards like a Suicune and a Tyranitar, and then a couple of other full arts. For that reason, it was pushing in the range of $550. If you go through and you take a look at the Sun and Moon set series, the next runner-up within the non-GX, non-alt-art, or GX tag team non-alt-art, the next most expensive set that you're going to be running up against is Celestial Storm, which of course at its current price point right now is worth more. Please ignore the fact that there's only 3 sales, so it's a little bit hyperinflated. But when it was at its absolute peak, it was the most expensive set when comparing it to the overall GX no tag team era. If you want to compare it to the GX tag team era, then the actual only set that has gone higher than that, has been Team Up. So when you're talking about the strength of Lugia as a character, it has been extremely strong when you're talking about the Sun and Moon era. For those of you guys, if you want to go even a further deep dive in history and want to go back to the Neo Genesis era, for those of you guys that do not know, Neo Genesis is a set, of course, that first introduced the Lugia. Now, obviously, there has been a large pullback in terms of a lot of the PSA valued cards. But for those of you that do remember, in terms of the highest point of value that this Lugia first edition was worth, because once again, we're going to have a conversation about the strength of the value of this card, talking about scarcity, talking about demand. It did have a record-breaking sale of around $130,000. It is, if I'm correct, one of the highest sold cards in existence. Obviously, you've got the Illustrator ahead of it. Obviously, you've got the Charizard. So it's still a runner-up for being one of very few cards to have sold for over $100,000. Population scarcity is going to play into it, but even if you take that out of consideration, you look at the 9 when it was at its peak, the 9 was still roughly going for almost $10,000, which is crazy to say. Of course, it has retraced since then because it was during the overall bubble boom, but the point I'm trying to say with this is that the Lugia, historically speaking, both in the most recent sets and both in the oldest set, has just always been a very strong performing set. It's been a character that has always had a ton of value. And so for that reason, I think that we're going to see that value kind of bleed into this next set. Another good example of a high demand card, look at the top cards within the Ancient Origin set. Of course, all 3 of them are the, goldish primal cards. Who would have guessed it? What's the next strongest one? It's actually the full art Lugia. So it's not a Mega Lugia, it's not a shiny Lugia, it is just a straight up full art Lugia. And so the fact that it's going to, of course, allow itself to have that much dominance and value of a $725 price point for a PSA 10, I think that's something that is absolutely insane to me. And when you're talking about it from a PSA rating perspective, it is actually the most expensive card in Ancient Origins, past the Mega and Primal cards, which are, quite frankly, a lot harder to pull than the Lugia EX itself. So, you know, when having these conversations about, once again, the strength of characters, Lugia, you know, by far has been a character that has performed extremely well time and time again. You know, if you want me to, we can always go through and keep looking at every single Lugia set, but I've already given you 3 examples, 2 from the most recent eras, 1 from the oldest era, just showing you the strength that a Lugia is going to have with it. Now, coupled with the fact that we're going to have our first ever alt art Lugia of all time, well, I think that's going to be a runner-up for Charizard in terms of overall character strength value, which is one of the reasons why I personally am a firm believer that this is going to be a set that is going to perform extremely strong. Now, we know that the upcoming set right now, Paradigm Trigger, I apologize for my stuttering on that one, is going to be the next official set, which is going to be revealed on October the 21st. So we do not know, of course, when we're going to get the exact details for the reveal, but expect it to be sometime around, you know, Wednesday or Tuesday of that kind of week of the 21st. We know that we have a full art confirmed. We know that we have a V-Star and a regular V confirmed. So that's something that I would definitely say be more or less on the lookout for when you're going to see that kind of final reveal. Now, I know there's been a lot of criticism as well in terms of the overall set as a whole, because we haven't seen a ton of character rares that have been added into the set. Well, for those of you guys that remember the good old set VMAX Climax, when we're talking about the overall full set list, but there have been cards in the character rare section of VMAX Climax that have just been more or less pouring into our standard sets for English. We are down to the last batch of cards that have yet to be thrown in. Obviously, with the most recent set, Lost Origin, it was mainly the kind of Pikachu theme that was going to be coming with it. And so now what is going to be the final ones that have yet to be revealed? It's going to be the dragons, which is totally on theme with Lugia. So obviously we're waiting for the population of the images, but we still have a Rayquaza Black and Gold to be revealed. We still have a Duraludon VMAX to be revealed. We still have, of course, a couple of these full art characters to be revealed. But most importantly, in my personal opinion, what I think is going to be worth an absolute ton of value is going to be the full VMAX Rayquaza, which is going to add an absolute ton of value. Sure, there's going to be a Duraludon, and you know, it's whatever, if I'm being honest with you guys. But the fact that we're going to be getting a Rayquaza, which for you guys, once again, we know how well Evolving Skies did, and one of the most expensive cards in that Evolving Sky set is the Rayquaza. You guys remember me harping back to the second most expensive set in the, of course, Sun and Moon era. That was including non-full art or alt arts and non-tag team. It was Celestial Storm. What's the main pull in Celestial Storm? It's a Rayquaza. So I did that for a reason, so we can harp back to this and say, hey, we're not only going to be having a Lugia in the set, but we're also going to more than likely have Rayquaza in this set. It's very, very unlikely that it doesn't get included, of course, because, I mean, just process of elimination of throwing VMAX Climax cards into the set. If this doesn't come in it, that's going to change value to it. Of course, if there's not an alternate art Lugia, that's going to change value. Like I said, we can always play the game of, you know, canceling our pre-orders. But as it stands right now, we know we're going to have an extremely strong character subset that we know of right now that is at least going to be including a Rayquaza in it, and then a main full art card, which is going to be a Lugia. I think that's something that's going to be well worth its weight in terms of long-term value, because if you look at Lost Origin as a whole for a set, don't get me wrong, as a huge Gen 4 fanner myself, it's cool to see that it has a Giratina. Do I think the alt art is the best design? It's okay. Obviously, it's the most expensive card in the set, but in terms of, you know, overall character value, it's going to be blown out of the water, in my personal opinion, by a Lugia. You then, of course, take into the fact of the matter that there's some scarcity in pull rates. Of course, the value is going to be added to that. And so we'll only see what that's going to look like in terms of the Lugia value when we get to that point of what the pull rates are going to look like for its individual value. But I don't think that should take away from the booster box value. If anything, it'll add to it because people will enjoy opening it more because it's easier to pull. However, subsets comparisons, Lost Origin has Pikachu, Red's Pikachu, which is going to add a ton of value from that nostalgia aspect. I think Rayquaza is going to be on par with that. You can make an argument saying slightly less, slightly more. Kind of hard to make a comparison indirectly to that because there are two fan favorite characters. But regardless of the fact of the matter, we've seen the standalone value from both of the characters, aka Vivid Voltage, aka Celestial Storm. And so for that reason, characters are going to be here for the win, generally speaking, for the set. Of course, just like with Lost Origin, we did get the black and white, black and gold, Chunkachu. We're going to more than likely as well get the Rayquaza Chunkachu involved in it as well. So just that alone, I feel like, is going to be adding a ton of value. Because if you really think about it, what do people get hyped about for the Lost Origin set? They get hyped for the fact that, sure, it's cool we've got Gengar, sure, it's cool we've got Snorlax and the Charizard in the common set, but it's the Chunkachu everyone gets extremely excited about. I think that Rayquaza is going to be that next card or character that we're all going to get extremely excited about. Now, we don't know what the other alternate art characters are going to be in it, and of course that will add to the value of it, but the fact of the matter that we do know that more than likely you're going to get that Rayquaza, you're going to get that alternate art Lugia within the set. We know that there's a ton of strength to be had, and for that reason, I feel confident enough at this time to pull the trigger on pre-orders for this set, going in with the expectation that it's going to have a ton of character strength with it. And as we've seen with the comparisons earlier in the video with the Evolving Sky set, as we've seen with the comparisons in the video to the Brilliant Star set, we both know that as long as it's a high demand set and there's still volatility there, even if, of course, the set the set itself is in an era right now where you're starting to see market regression because of our downturn, because of other factors being in a recession. So there's still opportunity to be made. You just have to be a lot more, of course, precise with these opportunities. You have to be a lot more patient. You have to wait for these sets that you think could have these opportunities. And like I said before, you got to be smart about it too. If you play the game where you say to yourself, hey, I see there's an opportunity because the lead up to the set, the value of it is increased and I can make a quick flip, then great. I harp on that opportunity. Hey, if I notice that I was wrong and for some reason the set bombs and we're able to get it for a cheaper price point, well then guess what? You double down and you play this at a longer term perspective because you know that Lugia and Rayquaza are going to be two characters that are going to have a ton of value. And that's why I think that as it stands right now, Silver Tempest is my number one pickup right now for playing the wave, and honestly one of my favorite pickups, even playing from a long-term perspective as a set, and we haven't even seen what the cards are going to be revealed. So of course my opinion could of course change with this over time, but I would much rather play the speculative game now when we don't know what the alternate arts are going to look like, and knowing that I can just back out at any time as long as it's right before the product gets shipped to me. And I'm going to have that sense of security knowing that, hey, if the set looks amazing once everything's revealed, well, guess what? Prices are probably going to go up, and I just got in at sub $100 for a Lugia set, guys. Like, that's crazy value in my personal opinion. You are not able to get this opportunity for neither Brilliant Star or Evolving Skies. Best case scenario for either was 105 off of the pre-release sale. So you're saying that you're able to get it for sub 100. I think people are sleeping on this. And even if, of course, this set is a total miss and you're saying I still want to hit on it, I still want to get in on it, I still think the fact that it's going to have Lugia within the set, it's going to add its value long term as well. So, but I think I've done long enough with my rants. We've been going on for 30 minutes now. You guys get the point. But as always, I've said it like 3 times already in this video, and I'll say it again. This is not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. This is, of course, only my opinions. But with that being said, in terms of my overall opinion, I personally am going to put my money where my mouth is on this, and we're going to play the wave strategy, and I will give you guys general updates if I do see price action go one way or another, because I know you guys are going to want, those of you guys that are going to play with me are going to want to see my general updates on what my kind of decision making is going to be for this. And of course, when I make those general update videos, I'll try to make it as quickly as possible as to update you guys when prices are there in real time, and I'll show you exactly what my plan is if I decide to sell or double down. But as far as it goes, that is all for today's video. Thank you guys all so much for watching. As always, if you want to enter into our weekly giveaways, all you have to do is leave a like, comment down below, and be subscribed to any of the pre-recorded content we post each and every week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Since we have 3 winners each and every week as well, and you can comment and like in each video, that has multiple opportunities to enter and multiple opportunities to win. But that is all for my in-depth video today for Playing the Waves. Thank you guys all so much for watching. Until then, I will see you guys on Monday. Peace.